Hey guys, what's cracking? Ben here from Film Made Easy. So in my last video, I looked at the footage that the GoPro Hero 9 can take, and yeah, today I wanted to talk about the settings I use on my GoPro Hero 9. I'll go through the 4 film settings you have and how I like to have it set up. So I'm not saying it's the best what I do, the best settings at all. That's not what I'm saying. It's just how I like to do it. It's something you can take as you want and work with as you need. Now, to get straight into it, here's my GoPro Hero 9. I'm going to turn it on there with the power button on the side, just one press, and watch it come to life. And like I said, we'll have a look at the settings in just a second. So all you have to do here is where it says standard at the bottom, just touch that and you've got your 4 settings. You've got standard, activity, cinematic, and slow-mo. Alright, when you click on the little edit button on the side, it's hard to do that through the camera and see, but there you go. Okay, so up the top you've got resolution and frames per second. You've got how you want your lens, you've got whether you want hyper smooth on or off. A few things we won't even talk about here, like scheduled capture, duration, hindsight, any of that. Hindsight is cool. It's so when you press record, it'll capture that few seconds or so before you've actually pressed record. It's pretty cool. Timer we won't worry about. The zoom we'll always just leave at 1. I don't touch any of that stuff. Bitrate, if you come down further, your bitrate you should always set to high. But shutter speed will depend on your frame rate, but yeah, we'll talk about that as we go. White balance I'll talk about. I don't ever set it to auto because later on when you're going to edit, it'll be easier if your white balance is always just set the same. Your ISO minimum and maximum, I always set that to about minimum 100, maximum 800. That way it doesn't change too much. Sharpness, again, I'll show you mediums of what I think is the best, but you can go soft, you can go sharp, like hard sharpness. Color, on all of them I go flat and you can just edit it later. Raw audio, I don't worry about any of the audio because if I'm going to use audio, I'll use an audio recorder and not the audio that the GoPro uses. Shortcuts we won't even talk about today. So yeah, here in standard mode, if I go back to the top, as you can see, I use a resolution of 5K and my frames per second is 24, very cinematic. Lens, I like to go linear. I'll click on it so you can see. If you drag this up or down, you can go, wide, which is more for action cam stuff, but I don't want that. Linear is good, but there's this new horizon leveling linear, and I like to use that in all of my footage. Okay, so I'll come back down and out of there. Alright, we're back here again. So that's the lens I like to use. Hyper smooth I just leave on. Again, a few of these things we won't talk about, but down here, bitrate. If you come over and click on bitrate, I'm at high. You can come down to, standard, but I recommend high all the time. Alright, you just swipe down to get out of there. ISO, like I said, 100, maximum 800. Sharpness medium, if you go through that, you can actually change that, as I said, to high, medium, or low. I leave everything on medium. I think that works well with the GoPro Hero 9. Color flat. You can actually get some pretty cool color out by saying the GoPro color, but I like to stick with flat and do that myself afterwards. And that's about it. Like I said, I won't worry about the shortcuts today. We'll get out of standard now, and we'll have a look at activity. See, all you have to do is click on it and you're in the actual mode itself. It's super quick and easy. But what we're going to look at is here in edit. So with activity, I shoot in 4K at 60 frames a second. So you can play it back at about half the speed. It's pretty cool slow-mo speed. As I mentioned, linear and horizon leveling is the lens I use. And we have to come down here to Pro Tune. As I mentioned, high. In all of them it's high. Shutter speed, again, as I mentioned, it's 1/120th of a second, and that is to match the 60 frames per second. I didn't mention that actually in standard. Whatever your frame rate is, just double that for your shutter speed, and then you'll get that right cinematic blur. That's how you get that. White balance, again, I've got most of them set at 4500K. I think that's a good point for the GoPro Hero 9, but you can have a play around with it. What I do recommend though is taking it off of auto, because that's going to mess you up when you come to edit. Okay, ISO minimum and max as usual, 100 to 800. Sharpness medium, color flat, and let's get out of here. Okay, whoops. Shutter speed, no, I don't need that. And we're good there. Let's get out of activity. We'll have a look at cinematic and how I have that set up. Cinematic 4K 30 frames a second. Linear, horizon leveling, all that good stuff usually on. And as I mentioned, the zoom always one time zoom, it's all normal. Bitrate high, shutter speed 1/160th of a second. Again, to get that cinematic blur, it's just 2 times that 30. Alright, let's come down, have a look. White balance is the 4500K as usual. ISO minimum 100, ISO max 800 as usual. Everything's the same here, sharpness medium. It's pretty simple. Once you've got it set up, you just leave it and you can flick through the 4 modes to use them. Slow-mo is pretty cool. I'm a big fan of my slow-mo. Whoops, okay, I've clicked to go into the mode instead of edit to show you. So here, you saw that it got much darker then, of course, because I'm shooting at 240 frames a second in 1080p. Everything else is the same. Bitrate high, shutter speed 1/480th of a second. So that's why it's really dark. That shutter's only open for a very short time. So yeah, you need a lot of light. It's best to get outside in the daylight or add a lot of light if you're going to shoot in slow motion. Everything else is the same. ISO minimum, ISO maximum. Of course you could turn the ISO max up in slow-mo, but then you're going to get really grainy footage. I don't like that. Everything else is the same. Sharpness medium, color flat. And yeah, so let's get out of there. I always keep it in standard just to start with, but you can see how quick and easy it is to just swap from standard to activity to cinematic. All touch screen on the back, super easy, super responsive. I'm a big fan of how easy to use the GoPro Hero 9 is. And again, back to standard, here we are. So yeah, inside super grainy footage, but that's quite normal. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that, guys. That's how I like to have mine set up. Oh, like I said, another thing, or like I wanted to mention another thing, when you're shooting in standard, or any mode really, if you're getting outside, to avoid having to change this, wait up, I'll get in here and show you. To avoid changing your shutter speed, because you'll go outside right now with your normal lens on, shooting 24 frames a second. If you put your shutter speed to 1/48th of a second, everything's going to be blown out, too bright. What you need to do is get yourself some ND filters, like I've got on here. This is just currently the ND8 on my GoPro, but you can get all different strengths of ND filter. And this actually, you take the lens off from the GoPro and you put the whole ND filter lens on. These are really good quality. You can buy cheaper ones that just clip on and off, but they'll still do the trick. But yeah, some ND filters if you want to shoot a bit cinematic is the way to go. That way you don't need to adjust your shutter speed to change it or put it on automatic. That way you can really set your shutter speed up right and get that cinematic motion blur. Alright, so let's get back out of here and back into standard. So guys, I hope I'll turn this off. So, nope, that's not how you turn it off. Of course it's not. You always have to wait for that then. That's how you swap through from, I'll do that again, photo, time-lapse, and video. Mine's always on video. Long hold of the power button, and we're powering off. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed that video. Hope you learned a little bit about the GoPro Hero 9 and how I like to have my settings. As I said in the start of the video, it may not be the best settings to use, it's just how I like to do it. It's something you can work with and move ahead. So yeah, don't forget to check out my other content. Don't forget to give the channel, or give the videos a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, do all that fun stuff. And yeah, see you guys in the next video. Bye.